qualitative strategies for cultural knowledge building in classrooms. In this module and in the coming few modules, we will discuss what are the different strategies that we can use as second language teachers in our classrooms to build cultural knowledge of our students. So if cultural knowledge of a second language is extremely important, then the job of the teacher is to allow the learners to gain that knowledge. The first thing to remember is that teachers over here must allow the learners to actually explore the cultural contrasts or to explore the target language culture on their own. So it is less of transmissive or transmission-based teaching, but more of explorative teaching in which the students or the learners are allowed to explore the cultural differences or how the language actually works within a given culture. This is important. This exploration is important because this will allow the learners to have their voice in the second language speech community. That would mean, in simpler words, that only once they know how to use a language, or rather how a language is used by the native speakers in their culture, then only they will be able to use their own voice to say what they want to say and to get what they want to achieve from a given situation if they know how to use the language in specific ways appropriate to that culture. Now, cultural activities, this means, need to be carefully organized. And having said that, it is not necessary that you dedicate whole classrooms to the teaching of culture. Of course you can, but even when you are teaching any English language content or any second language content, whenever there are some cultural aspects to it or how a language is used, we need to ask questions, explore, present, and this will only enrich the teaching content that we have in the classrooms. Now, there are several useful strategies that we can use effectively in our classrooms to teach culture. Number one is the use of authentic materials. What are authentic materials? Authentic materials are materials that are actually used in real life situations in whatever context or whichever culture you want to highlight. So you really bring a piece of text. Now, text is a written piece. It is also something that can be visual. It can also be anything. A picture can also be a text in a specific way. So you bring in authentic materials from the culture, from your own culture, or from the target language culture. It really depends what the focus of the teaching itself is. We can also discuss proverbs and idiomatic phrases. This is something similar to what we call muhavre in Urdu. So these proverbs, or if we talk about Urdu, muhavre are important because when you talk about a muhavra in Urdu, it does not actually mean what is there. So the actual words actually have a different kind of meaning, which people within that context can only understand. Similarly, proverbs in English also would not mean what the structure of that language is actually saying, but there are some hidden meanings which only the people living in that culture or knowing that culture can understand. This would mean that we can also compare the proverbs in English and muhavras from Urdu to see how language works. Not only this, but to see what are the cultural assumptions about certain things in the two cultures. How are they similar or different? For instance, a small thing, the owl, right? Whether the owl is wise, or which is considered wise in the English world, or is it like ullu, which means he does not understand something at all? So these small things need to be discussed. There can be a role play, small dramas, small role plays, and children could actually simulate real life contexts. And then they could also make cultural capsules. Now, it does seem to be a little bit lot. It is not. It only means that we gather together. We gather in a small box or a small, whatever container, some things which the students might think that represents their culture. And then we try to develop a capsule together as a classroom and see what are the things that somehow represent the culture of the second language that we are trying to learn. Other useful strategies can be that you can use your students as cultural resources. Now, students within even the context of Pakistan, even Pakistan does not have one specific culture. It is a multicultural country. You can ask the students to bring in cultural resources. You can use them as cultural resources. They could even help you explore the second language culture. Then there is literature. The use of literature in classrooms. It's a rich way of talking about culture. And then, of course, films, which the children will love to watch.